lynch you, but he did, and I think he lasted about a week and a half.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on, again, what part of the world you are watching from. Welcome back to the West Ham Network. I'm Anton, bringing to you another West Ham Daily. Hope you're keeping well and safe as per usual. DJ Rusty B sunning himself up in Florida right now while we are sitting here freezing our balls off, depending if you do have a set of them. Some say I don't, some say I do. Shit happens. Anyway, if you're new around here, hit the subscribe button. Why not? Why not? It does help us out, of course. If you're interested in becoming a channel member, you can click on the join option as well. Myself and DJ Rusty B are working behind the scenes to give you the best content we possibly can for the new year, with a couple of extra new signings coming your way. And we are excited to announce them very, very shortly. I hope you've been enjoying the content we've been bringing to you. The Advent Calendar series is out every single morning, so I hope you've enjoyed that one. Matthew Rush the other day. Love a bit of Matthew Rush. Who remembers him? So, yeah, hope you are enjoying it. We've got Fulham at the weekend in the friendly. Looking forward to seeing West Ham again. Unfortunately, I won't be able to watch it. I'll be away with the family on a family trip. But keep your eye on the channel. We'll have a little bit of stuff happening in regards to the Fulham game. So definitely keep your eye on the channel for that. But let's get into it. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. And there's a lot to get through today. And you can probably see from the comment or from the title of the show, big blow for West Ham. Trouble ahead for Moyes. Coufal out in January. Well, on that, let's get into it. Vladimir Coufal now, Bayern Leverkusen, who we've reported earlier on in this, a couple of months ago before the World Cup especially, and now a couple of Premier League clubs. Reportedly, Fulham are interested in signing Vladimir Coufal in January. Now, the right-back has a contract until 2024 with West Ham, but he's grown increasingly frustrated with David Moyes due to lack of minutes, and it's reported that West Ham are willing to consider offers for the once-away defender, but it would require a considerable fee to sell mid-season. The 30-year-old has just started 7 Premier League appearances this season, with the last being in mid-October, and games that come to mind which he didn't perform that well in were the Everton game, where we really had to rely on Jared Bowen coming back and supporting Vladimir Coufal in that role. But then I think he had a really good run of games when he played in the Europa League Conference, and I thought he needed those much-needed games, and I think there's still a valued player in there. But apparently, according to reports, there's a dispute between him and Moyes, and that may come as a bit of surprise to West Ham fans, considering Moyes is extremely complimentary of the full-back. Back in October, he even went on and he said Vladimir has played really well, and if you think of where he has come over the past 2 to 3 years, the journey which he has helped us on to, from being a side fighting relegation from long periods to a team pushing towards the top of the league, Vladimir has played a huge part in that, which again makes it all more staggering that Coufal has started potentially only 7 matches in the league this season. But according to several reports, West Ham are willing to listen to concrete offers about Coufal, but are reluctant to potentially sell, given the fact that we do have some injury issues in defence, and of course the fact that we may have other disgruntled players in that particular position. We know a couple of players have been sidelined as well, but it would be potentially a bizarre move to let him go in this winter window, considering he has been predominantly consistent as a West Ham player. And especially given the fact that we lack a bit of depth in that area as well. Now, Coufal could be here running down his contract at West Ham. It may be worth West Ham trying to sell now to bring back some fee and recoup some of the transfer funds from the sale. But in terms of Bayer Leverkusen, signing Coufal would be a smart move, as they would potentially lose their first choice right back, Frimpong, who looks likely potentially and is linked to Manchester United in January. And that means then that they'll be desperate to have another solid fullback option at the club. But in terms of the 2 unnamed Premier League clubs, one is reportedly to be Fulham. Now, what we do know about Coufal is he's extremely settled in London, and he seems to enjoy his lifestyle in London. He'd be able to go home to the Czech Republic quite easily, but he is extremely settled in his home in the London. So Fulham genuinely could be an option. So there's reported of a rift between the two players. I'm not too sure how true that is. I mean, you think about Coufal, you think about this model professional at the club. He has been since he's been there from the start. He's dipped in form only really this year. He dipped in form. It looks like he's lost a bit of pace since he picked up a couple of hamstring injuries, I think it was. But again, have to wait and see how this particular one plays out, of course, as well. Now, another player we've been talking a lot about is Harrison Ashby, and losing him in January would be a big blow to David Moyes. He's 21 years old. And he's one of the brightest prospects that have come through the ranks at the London Stadium in the last decade. And he is a talented right back who burst onto the scene back in the 2021 season with 2 appearances in the Carabao Cup for West Ham. But since then, though, David Moyes has given Ashby just 5 outings in the first team. Every time he's played, he has impressed. He definitely has. So why on earth hasn't he been given more time and more opportunities at West Ham? And it looks now likely that he could be set to leave in January for a nominal fee. And potentially it's Newcastle United who are leading the race for his signature. But if West Ham don't sell him in January, we will lose him on a free transfer in the summer of 2023. So why have the powers at the club not dealt with this situation sooner rather than later? I understand if players aren't going to get given an opportunity, they want to go and get the best career for them. So what is it going to take for these young players to make the step up? I've said it before, they're going to have something to Declan Rice standards in order to probably to break through to this club. But sometimes you think a player with the ability that what we've saw in Harrison Ashby does deserve to have been given more game time. There has been games last season where we were struggling in different departments. Even this season, we're struggling in different departments. And you always felt like Harrison Ashby was the one that could have came in there as well. But it means then potentially we may have to start spending money in this position on top. Again, another reason why we may have to start spending money in this position is the rumours talking about Ben Johnson and his agent is refusing talks. The Ben Johnson situation, he's a bit like Marmite at West Ham. You either like him or you don't. And I am one of those fans that do like him. I think he can add value. I feel really sorry for the guy because this season in particular, he's had to play so many different positions. So he's had an inconsistent start to his West Ham season this year, where last year he was a very good performer, challenging that right back position, getting forward, coming back, defending, pacey, clever on the ball, putting balls into the box. He's not having to do that this season, and he can't do that this season. Why? Because he's not getting a run in the team in the same position. He's had to cover at centre back. He's had to play centre back as a back 3. He's had to play as a right back, and he's had to play as a left back. He's one for the future for me, Johnson. We had to try and make sure we tied down to this long-term contract. He's been in and around the squad. He's played several games for the club. He knows the club inside out. He loves the club inside out. And we just need to make sure we solidify this deal to keep him at the club. But maybe he's keeping his options open. Maybe he doesn't want to. Maybe he wants to see what the situation happens when it comes to Declan Rice. Maybe, he's just keeping all of his options open. And we really can't blame players for doing that because they've got to. There is only one career in football, but it does disappoint me that we can't get these young lads signed up or tied down. I don't know. I'm trying to understand it from a footballer or an agent or a manager or a coach's point of view. I'm trying to take my head out of the fan head base and go, we should be signing that player. Why are they not signing that player? Is there reasons why they're not bringing them on? Do they genuinely don't think they'll go on to make it? I think Russ has done a piece previously on a show, and I'll try and put that in the description below, where he's talked about youth players who have went on in their careers who didn't get a chance at West Ham. And I don't think there's that many who have gone on to absolutely make it. So in theory, the majority have been proven right to get rid. In theory. So I'm not saying it's Ashby and Ben Johnson are those sort of players. I'm really, really not. But there is maybe something in that. Maybe there's a reason why we sit here on this side of the camera and don't deal with football in those terms. I think there's easily opportunities for these players to make good careers in football. You would love to hope that they can make good careers at West Ham, but what will be, what will be. And on top of that, I mean, we're expecting Thilo Kehrer back this week, back from training, obviously being knocked out from Germany. And people have been saying there's a bit of dip in form. And Kehrer, you know, when he first came into the side, he was thrown straight into the mix and put in centre back. And I thought he had a couple of good performances, even though he made a few mistakes. That's kind of expected when you get a player coming into a new league. And that's exactly what he did. He made a few mistakes. And then, you know, he started to be quite strong, quite powerful, clever on the ball, takes time on the ball. Then he was moved out to right back and thought, God, that's the right back we've been missing, which is obviously disgruntled, and pushed out Coufal, Ben Johnson, and even Harrison Ashby. But we could be in a situation here where you've got a player who's out of form as such. You've got to give him time, got to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's a new signing. But this has disgruntled three of our other players. One of them, Ben Johnson, who potentially doesn't want to sign a contract. Coufal, who potentially is looking at leaving the club, as is Harrison Ashby. When you've got four potentially strong right backs and you are now looking at potentially one right back, what do you do? It is really an interesting situation, but we need to be able to manage it and deal with it better than what we've done in the past. There definitely isn't something right in the structure of how we manage the players, their contracts, and the longevity of them staying at the club and being able to make as much money as we possibly can. The last deal I can imagine off the top of my head that we thought was a good deal for the club was the Diangana deal when we sold him to West Brom. I know the fan base at the time were split, but for me to receive 25 million for a youth player that probably wasn't going to break back into the team because people had forgot he had already played several games in the Premier League the season before, and he didn't. He was a great player. I really thought he had a talent, but I didn't ever think he set the world alight. Never ever thought he set the world alight. He never caught my attention to that next level. He never, he wasn't a player that I thought would have taken it to the next level. And when you were tipped to bring in players like Ibrici Eze, Saeed Benrahma, or sell Diangana, for me, it was one of, Diangana did fall third on that list. And I know Mark Noble, and I know the fan base didn't like it when you sold a young player, but there's a deal where, he's not gone on to prove anything that he would have been a standard above what we were expecting. He's proven that he's a very good footballer, but maybe not at the standard we wanted. So 25 million was bang for your buck. Like, that's a clever move. But apart from that, there's been no other clever business by West Ham. We lose money left, right, and centre on all these players. But when it comes to players, and I think the most disappointing one for me would be Harrison Ashby, because Russ has been ramming home about him for a couple of years. I've maybe about a year or so thought, yeah, this could be the next up and coming star for West Ham. But you've got a hectic roster in footballers in that position, and potentially could be left with one. So we're going to have to go heavy into the market to make sure we can bring players in to make that area stronger. Anyway, leave your comments in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts on what I've said there. Is there trouble ahead? Is there a rift between Coufal and Moyes? Is Harrison Ashby heading out of the club? Is Vladimir Coufal, heading out of the club? Is Ben Johnson not signing his contract? I don't think he'll be leaving this summer or anything like that, or this winter or anything like that. But I think that could have a knock-on effect to that position, because you think, well, what's the longevity? If you're not going to commit to the club, then why am I going to put you in this position and commit to you being there as well? So leave your comments in the comment section. If you're new around here, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching. Stay safe. And here is a little cheeky message from our sponsors. Come on, you Lions.